Hey everyone, this time we read One Up. So I'm pretty sure that I was not the target audience for this book, mostly because I kept getting hung up on a lot of the historical inaccuracies that Joost had in this. It was just kind of a weird thing to read and then, have a bunch of like really interesting marketing stuff and a lot of interesting economic stuff thrown at you, and then all of a sudden read something that's just so unbelievably wrong about video game history that it just kind of took me out of it every once in a while. So during this book, Jost talks about three things that I found really interesting, and it's kind of the growth of digital market, like digital media, and the decline of physical media. And he talks about this by looking at the mobile gaming scene, the console market, and also the PC market. So because this is a book about economics, it just sort of felt weird to me when I was reading it, mostly because I don't really have a background in economics, so I found a lot of this stuff really interesting, but it was just, as I mentioned, it was just peppered with like historical inaccuracies about the video game industry that I just kept getting hung up on. And it just detracted from what really is a good book. I should really stress that. I liked most of this. It would just be like one or two instances when I would get derailed from actually like reading all of the stuff that I really liked was something that was just like just really bizarre and really far out there that I just it was just really weird when I got to some of these parts. Now, I do really like that he talked about mobile gaming because it's not really something that I care about or really pay that much attention to. So, learning about the different markets and everything with mobile gaming, why it's so hard for some games to really like break out in the mobile gaming scene, why some of the bigger publishers were kind of a little bit hesitant to get into mobile gaming, that was really cool to read. It also helped to kind of give the reader a better picture of like what games are successful. And I do want to transition into one thing that I found weird here because he talks about a few of like the non-traditional markets. So he's mentioning things like South America, specifically talking about Brazil. He talks about China and how hard it is to get into China because, just really the way their government is. They banned consoles in 2000. They didn't let consoles back in until about 2018. It's a really cool thing to read about, but I got really hung up when he started talking about Brazil and he started talking about consoles. And he mentions that, like, he makes some statement that I can't really remember off the top of my head, but it was something about how there really weren't consoles in Brazil prior to like Xbox trying to go in there, and most of it was because the barrier to entry, like it was just very expensive for you to get one, like any console really, which made me really confused because I start thinking back to the Sega Master System and that being successful, or at least successful enough in Brazil for Sega to actually, pursue more consoles. It was weird stuff like that that I don't expect Jost to really know about because he's not, a video game historian or a crazy person on the internet that makes YouTube videos about this stuff. But it was just one of those things that I was like, that's not 100% true. It might be accurate for a lot of the other ones, but you can point to some of Sega's success in Brazil and in Europe for really the reasons why they continued to pursue the console market. So I will mention one thing about data is he puts a lot of charts and lots of graphs in here, which kind of help me out a little bit because it's more of like a visual representation. It's one thing to just, read about it in the chapter and, just sort of be like, well, okay, I mean, that kind of makes sense, but then to actually like see the numbers and the graphs, it's like, okay, now I actually can see what he's talking about. I'm not just like trying to imagine this in my head and coming to my own weird conclusions about stuff. So where the book really shines is when Joe starts talking about really the economics of the video game industry, and thankfully that's the majority of the book. And as I've said, like really the biggest knock I have against this book is just a lot of the historical inaccuracies of it. It just really kind of was driving me crazy while I was reading this. The last example of that I'll give you is really when he talks about E.T., and he brings up some stuff that I really hadn't thought of before, or at least ignore when I'm actually heaping more of the dirt on Pac-Man being the cause of the video game crash instead of E.T. And it's really just like the marketing deals and everything that had to get signed in order to get the intellectual property of E.T. That was a pretty big failure in its own right. I'm still not convinced that it is the reason that brought down the entire industry. I just think it was like the last nail in Atari's coffin. So if you're looking for something on like video game history, this is definitely not the book for you. But if you're doing a study on the economics of the video game industry, then yeah, this is a pretty good one to go with. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and please check out his book if you're really interested in learning a little bit more about the economic side of the video game industry. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a great day, everybody.